A viewer recently asked where I find inspiration. An insightful question. The answer isn't as profound. Catalogs, magazines, and people watching provide the catalyst for products, patterns, blogs, and this TV show. Such is the case for this series. Since I enjoy making bags, I'm always on the search for new concepts. A computer bag featured in a catalog was the inspiration for this first innovative bag idea. The offset adjustable straps looked to be functional while adding panache. Yet, there was more. The materials used inside, the part we can't see, added to the smartness. You guessed it, I'll show you how. Innovative bags and totes, that's what's next on Sewing with Nancy.
Sewing with Nancy, celebrating 30 years of sewing and quilting with Nancy Zieman, is made possible by Baby Lock, a complete line of sewing, quilting, and embroidery machines and sergers. Baby Lock, for the love of sewing. Madeira, specializing in embroidery, quilting, and special effects threads because creativity is never black and white. Koala Studios, fine sewing furniture custom built in America. Clover, makers of sewing, knitting, quilting, and embroidery products for over 25 years. Experience the Clover difference. Amazing designs and Class A needles.
During this series, I'm going to be showing you 8 different handbags, and you can use any pattern or template that you'd like. The criteria would be to choose a pattern that's rectangular in shape. You can see there are many options or even templates. So I'm going to be using a variety of sizes and styles as we work, but they're all going to have kind of square lower bottom edges. And I mentioned it's what's inside that counts is really the first part we're going to talk about. And when I first made this bag from this template, I just used interfacing and it became very lackluster, had very little shape. And that is going to be the first idea to show you that even though we've made the computer bag handles, this has great substance to it. So there are basically 3 kinds of stabilizers that you need on the inside. The first is just to use a fusible interfacing, a lightweight fusible interfacing on the fabric. This is an upholstery type fabric, but yet just that interfacing does help. That's what I had in the first bag, certainly not enough. The second part is to add a craft stiff interfacing, very stiff. I like the sew-in type personally, and it comes on a bolt, so you can get it in white. White is the color of choice, or you can buy fabric in a package that's called headliner. It's the fabric that's used in car upholstery at the head area, as you might guess. So either of these are great additions to use. Now I'm going to show you how to work with them because they're thick. Make sure you increase your needle size, like to a 90 or 100, a larger eye, and you'll be able to accommodate the thickness in fabric. And what I like to do initially is after I've cut out my pattern, I've traced this using the template, sew the lower edge of your bag, no matter what style it is. And then at this full size, then cut the large area of the craft interfacing so that you don't have to have 2 seams in this area. Then sew, and I just am clipping the craft interfacing around the edges. And then you'd baste around it. Now there's a third interfacing, and really it's a stabilizer. It's a bag bottom. It's a stitchable plastic that you cut to the size of the base of the bottom minus the 1/4 of an inch or 1/2 inch, whatever seam allowances you may have. It's difficult to pin through it because of all the thicknesses, so I like to use double-sided basting tape, and then I would center this on the bag and then stitch. Stitching is easy, it's the pinning that's a little tricky. And on this sample, you'll see that I've stitched through all the layers, even added feet if you'd like to add feet. That's totally optional. But here you can see now the shape of the bag will form very easily because of all this nice inner construction. But we're adding some innovation, the innovation being changing the straps. And if you look at a purchase bag or tote, you can adapt, as I have done, some of these ideas where the straps are offset. It makes it easier to keep on your shoulder rather than having the straps on the side. And I've made one strap 34 inches in length and the other one 14. And that makes a longer hang to the bag. Interfacing is important here too. You can use traditional fusible interfacing or the fusible perforated interfacing. Cut your strap 2 inches wide, place the fusible side down, and then press. And press, and just press it, fuse it down. And after you've fused the entire length, then press the long edges of the perforation to the middle and cover the edges with ribbon, grosgrain ribbon or trim and top stitch. What a nice, neat, and decorative trim. On the very short end, the shorter end of the 14-inch length, I like to sew just 1/4 inch across the top because this will give me that shape so that I'll have a nice closure, a closure of a V shape, just a little decorative shape. So now to do the stitching of attaching the straps to your bag. At the right-hand corner of one side, you're going to measure down 2 inches and over 2 inches. 2 inches by 2 inches. And then I already have, of the longer strap, I'll turn under 1 inch. And you would top stitch just a box area in this section. Top stitch it down. And so that correlates to this side of the bag here. Just top stitch that into place. I'll flip it over, and at that same corner, measure in 2 inches by 2 inches, but this time, after turning under 1 inch and over 2 inches by 2 inches and stitching, then you will have the end available to come forward. And let me show you this on the finished bag. I have 2 D-rings applied to the long end, and then just adjust the strap for a great design change. Bundles of neatly tied coordinated fabrics called fat quarters are a temptation that's difficult to resist. If you'd like to dwindle down your fat quarter inventory, stitch a tote. It's the perfect palette to feature fabric and embroidery coordinates. Here's how to addition fabric or embroidery, then showcase them in a tote. I have 2 bags to show you, and the bag that is just with fat quarters used 4 various fat quarters, different coordinates from the same print. You can see a pocket in the front, just a panel on the opposite side, and I used shway fabrics. A guest during Nancy's Corner last season gave me some of these beautiful fabrics from Africa, and on the opposite side, the wrong side, is printed in imprint to show the authenticity of the fabric. And we used that as the center panel. Now to determine which fabric should go on either side, I make auditions for the fabrics, seeing which ones would look best in this area. And I think I'd go something like this so that the imprint would be focal point rather than having something too light. You can see that's just a personal decision. Whether you're having larger fat quarters that are sold traditionally, you may want to consider a large print that would go in the center. And then again, unroll these and make visual decisions visually, as Lorraine Torrance taught me, our Sewing with Nancy guest, to make sure you like the look before you do the cutting. That's really simple. But the size of 18 by 22, the fat quarter size, are ideal for totes and bags, especially if you combine them. But you may not always have all the fabrics that you need for coordinates, so then embroidery comes into play. You can add additional embroidery to highlight, to enhance, and I think wheat is so very graceful, and definitely we have a graceful combination on the opposite side. We can see it enhances the fat quarter selection. Again, you have to do some auditioning. Print out the template. If you're an embroidery machine owner, you know that you can purchase templates to see the size of the embroideries, place them on the fabric to make sure that they're the right size. And for the pocket area, just one embroidery was not enough. It just had 2 stalks. We're going to add 3 areas. So you can fill out a whole palette with your embroidery machine. And that's what I'm going to show you now. I have one of the wheat motifs selected, and it's going to be too minimal. I need to add some more, so I'll go back and I'll just repeat that design. Just add it, and then as I set it, I can move it down to fill in the frame. And then we're going to add one more, the same design. Repeating a design, I think, is very important rather than overdoing it by having too many different designs. And I got to tweak this to make sure that these are, let's see, I think the middle one maybe should go down a little bit, and the next one needs to go down even more. There we are. And I'll look at the design to see if I like the image, and it's okay for now. So I have my machine set with the stabilizer. I've adhered the fabric to the stabilizer with double-sided tape, one of my favorite things to sew, to adhere it with, and I'll lower the presser foot, and then I'll do the sewing. And let me just make sure my editing is complete. Here we go. It's ready to sew, and I'll just let it start. So you may not have all the fabric that you need to coordinate. So let your embroidery machine make the coordinating look. Finish the look out. And that's certainly easy to do with this open design. I'm a fan of open design. So as we take a look at the finished embroidery, we have 3 of the wheat motifs designed together. Notice how they coordinate well with the remaining fat quarters, a great option. Touches of gathers or ruching are featured accents on all types of accessories, especially bags. When you have the option of making the fabric choices, you'll be able to easily add gathering or ruching accents with ease using your iron. Believe it or not, the trim created for this bag, the ruched piping, dimensional piping, the gathers with the raw edge, were created by fusing tape onto the wrong side of the fabric. We used raw edge 1-inch wide strips for the gathering accents. Just tore some batik fabrics, and I'm using a small sample here, just tore them so that we had raw edges. You could finish the edges too. And then using a gathering tape. 1/2 inch wide, you can see light blue threads on one side and no light blue threads on the other. It's just white threads on the other side. You press the tape with the blue threads uppermost, or if you didn't have gathering tape, just run 2 rows of basting stitches down the edge. Now at my ironing station, I'll show you just the pressing technique. Blue side, make sure the blue side is up, otherwise you'll have the tape on the underside of your iron. Just press it down, and then using your scissors, gather up or pull up the blue threads on one end, and I like to pull those threads and then tie them into a knot. Just go around your finger and tie them into a tight knot. Then at the other end, you're going to pull up again the threads so that you have threads and pull the length. Now to save time, I've done that. I have that done for you, so you just pull the threads and gather it. Of course, you could use 2 rows of basting threads, but it's fast and it's even. Using the design on the fabric, we kind of mimicked or followed it. Let me get it going the correct way. This is a small length. We do a much longer length, and we just gradually followed the wave of the design. You need to pin it down. And here you can see that I'm just straight stitching after pinning along that in the middle of the trim to hold it into place. That is a fast trim. Now once you know how to make the gathering section, you can make the ruched piping because it's just 1 step different. The difference occurs when you're going to be starting with a 2-inch wide strip and placing the tape, the gathering tape down the middle, and then of course doing the gathering, pulling the threads. And the other end I have anchored down, so just get those 2 threads pulled and gently gather. Now in the middle I have the cording, the piping for the cording, and it is a cording that's already wrapped with a fusible web. This is totally a fusible highlight right now, and it's a fast way of making piping without skipping 1 step of stitching. So again, at my ironing station, this takes a little bit longer time because you are going to be kind of shaping the gathered fabric that was cut 2 inches around the fusible piping. So working on your surface, just press, press, and you're pressing in the tucks. Usually we want very straight stitching. Well, in this instance, we're getting that extra little dimension added to the piping. I ask you to cut the fabric 2 inches wide, and now you can trim down the width so that it's about 1 inch. And now you can see the trimming it into place. Meet it along the edge of your fabric where it's going to be at the top of the pocket in this instance, and using a piping foot. The piping foot has a hollowed out section on the underside, and at the machine you can see that the piping is aligned in the groove section. I have the needle in the right position and stitching the piping down. Here again is that sample that I've already stitched. And then when sewing the second half, just put right sides together of the pocket, then flip over so that you restitch along the thread line. And here's another close-up of that restitching. Basically, you're just sandwiching the piping between those two layers of fabric using that cording foot. It really helps a lot. And you get a nice decorative effect, ruched and gathered with fusing. The initial design for this bag features a flap closure, adding both style and security. Here's the innovative change, switching the flap for the strap. The bag contents are still secure while adding a distinctive look. When you make changes, whether it's a dress pattern, a skirt pattern, or a bag pattern, you want to make certain that some of the same details that the designer added are carried through, even though you're modifying them. And the details that I wanted to make certain that stayed in place were the placements of the snaps. So I had a secure closure. The original design for this bag pattern and then the updated design. The same hardware that's used on the side is an accent on the strap. And notice that the snaps are in the same place so that you'll have the secure closure. Using that same perforated interfacing that I used to create the strap earlier is what I have here. It's cut 11 inches, and I'll give you a dimension or reason for that, I should say, and then cut a 2-inch strip of your fabric. Fuse the perforated strap material to the wrong side of the fabric. The reason I cut it that length, now this will vary depending upon the size of your original pattern. I wanted the strap to be double plus a little bit, a little more, so that I would have some additional length. And so that's the reason I came up with the 11 inches. Now the snap placement is really critical. And I've pre-marked this snap placement by placing my pattern, the template, on top of the snap and marking the bullseye, the center. You see some horizontal markings, and those came from placing the washer. It's kind of small to work with. Let me get the washer on top of the circle. There we go. And then marking through the openings, just with a pen. Then you're going to cut that opening. If you have an 18mm rotary cutter, it works great as long as you're working on a padded surface. And then unlock the blade, and at the perpendicular, just push down. Don't cut, just push, and it will cut through all the layers. Now to add a little bit of a different or additional security, the material that I used in the lower portion, the bottom of the handbag earlier, if you might have a scrap, cut a square and then put 2 slit openings the same distance as the opening of the prongs of the snap. I'll show you why. From the wrong side, you're going to place the prongs through the opening. Now this is going to get a lot of wear and tear. So now you place this security on top and then the washer on top of that. And you can then close and use your little end of the cutter to close the snap into place. And it will be very secure and you will not have issues to pull it out. Stitch along the sides after you have pressed along the perforation, and I haven't stitched just yet, but will, and then thread the hardware. Thread the hardware through the area, and here you can see that I'm stitching using a zipper foot, stitching next to the hardware so I can stitch very close. Now my sample hasn't been stitched just yet, but after you've done the stitching one time, then thread the second one on the top and stitch again, and you'll see that you'll have this decorative look. As we take a look at the finished bag, you'll see how interesting it can be and an easy change. Budget cuts have become the norm in all businesses, including the business of medicine. When today's Nancy's Corner guest found her budget trimmed, she did not want to sacrifice patient amenities, so she formed a creative partnership. I'd like you to welcome Diane Haig. She's a dialysis nurse who also provides personalized comfort pillows to her patients with the help of a local sewing guild. Diane, welcome to Sewing with Nancy.
Nice to be here. Thank you.
When I heard about your project, it doesn't take a lot of sewing, but it certainly helps people who are going through significant medical treatment.
Yes, our patients are sitting in their dialysis chairs 3 days a week and up to 3 to 4 hours at a time. So it can get very uncomfortable, and we were providing services through the company, and that linen service we no longer have, but we're able to meet that need for the patient and keep them comfortable with the products that we give them as a gift. And this pillow is one of those things that's included in the gift.
It's a simple pillow-sized, travel-sized pillow?
It's a travel-sized pillow, and the finished pillowcase is just a 12 by 18 inch, and they can be any type of pillowcase, but these particular ones were made by the Sewing Guild members.
So you're a member of the Sewing Guild locally in Madison, but there are sewing guilds all around the country.
There's sewing guilds everywhere in every state, and then it isn't just the sewing guilds, but different volunteer groups of people who sew. So these are a couple samples here.
And you said how appreciative the patients are to receive.
They're all different, and different patients have received different ones and are very appreciative of the efforts that the people have gone to make these for them.
So in the past, they received these without any charge, and now, or it was part of their program, and now it's a donation. How
this is all donated. Yes, the fabrics and the work all donated. So we were simply cutting a linen service budget and still able to provide. Plus, the ones coming from linen weren't nearly as beautiful.
And I'm sure you can kind of personalize and
people have made them with men, women, children, or young people in mind. So whatever fabrics anyone chooses. So there's all kinds of variety.
And what I like about this project is that it isn't a huge time commitment for someone who sews.
Not at all. It doesn't take much time at all. Plus, sometimes it's people have fabrics, sometimes people sew. I often put those two together. And there are many times people that are homebound but still sew. Getting fabrics to them gives quite a bit of meaning and purpose for them as well. They're still contributing.
Now, when we talked, there isn't a website or there isn't a coordinated group on this because this is a simple project.
Right. It had simply come up as a possibility. Could I organize something? And I said, well, I think I can do that.
Yeah,
so,
and you did. Wow.
We certainly have met the need at our company, but because of the interest and the need that it does seem to meet, there are many dialysis units all over the state and all over the country.
And that's what we want to tell our viewers about, is how you can perhaps work with a dialysis unit close to you.
Oh, certainly.
And the foundation, there's a National Kidney Foundation. And tell us about that.
That's a foundation that's national, and then each state has a chapter. But they're definitely involved in volunteer and charitable parts with their organization, that they oftentimes coordinate this type of thing.
So as a viewer, you could go to the National Kidney Foundation, find out your local dialysis area, contact them.
That's correct. And they would have a list of the companies that are available or might be interested in the area.
So then you too could use some of your fabric and make, really, I think these are very attractive, and they help the patients immensely.
The patients treasure them. If they manage to forget to take theirs with, they'll come back and they'll ask, hey, where's my pillow? And they'll name it by the fabric.
Sure. Well, what a great way of incorporating kind of a community, working with the Guild, people who need a little extra comfort in a time of distress.
Yes, many times it's just recognizing a need where you are and then making that need known in the community, and there will be somebody somewhere that's able to help you with that. So,
well, Diane, thank you. Thank you for connecting the dots, and what a great idea.
Well, thank you for having us here.
You're welcome.
So, appreciate it.
And thank you for joining us on Sewing with Nancy. We'll have our second program of innovative bags and totes in our next time. Just remember, you can find out more about all our Nancy's Corner guests by going to nancyzieman.com. Click on Nancy's Corner. You can find out all about our guests and links to their various sites or information. Also, at nancyzieman.com, you'll be able to watch this program again, find out if you missed part of the program, part of the interview, and 52 of the most current Sewing with Nancy programs. Plus, you can sign up to get my blog, weekly information on sewing, quilting, and creative arts. Thanks for joining me. Bye for now.
Nancy has written a fully illustrated book entitled Innovative Bags and Totes that includes all the information from this two-part series. It's $14.99 plus shipping and handling. To order the book, call 800-336-8373 or visit our website at sewingwithnancy.com/2601. Order item number BK2601. Innovative Bags and Totes. Credit card orders only. To pay by check or money order, call the number on the screen for details. Visit Nancy's website at nancyzieman.com to see additional episodes, Nancy's blog, and more. Sewing with Nancy, celebrating 30 years of sewing and quilting with Nancy Zieman, has been brought to you by Baby Lock, Madeira Threads, Koala Studios, Clover, Amazing Designs, and Class A Needles. Closed captioning funding provided by Oliso. Sewing with Nancy is a co-production of Nancy Zieman Productions and Wisconsin Public Television.